Well, it happens sometimes, but December was a bit of a slower month for me, but still some good reads, and we'll talk about all those here. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be doing my wrap up for the month of December. And yeah, December I ended up slumping a little bit. And usually I end up slumping a bit more in January and finishing pretty decently strong. But this one, I think partially it was just a particularly busy month for me, which is kind of work and everything. And the kiddo and all that kind of stuff as well as some reads that didn't go quite the best that I feel like had me a little bit slumpy as well. But we'll talk over everything and go from there. So first, I finished up The Memory of the Ogisi, which I think I was just about done with as December was rolling around. This is the third book in the Forever Desert. I will still be doing. I would have had it by now, but since I had my little break, I haven't gotten to filming a video about the Forever Desert trilogy. But this was a really strong end. It brought kind of some of the themes and ideas being discussed, brought everything full circle and really, I think, accomplished what it wanted to accomplish, but in some really interesting ways. And I thought it was a fascinating way to end it, because there's definitely, I felt like there's some different things that could have been done specifically, and I wasn't exactly sure where the author was going to build up to, but it's just each book just re looking at how stories change over time, and stories are such a huge part of this. And so this was really fascinating, and I quite enjoyed this trilogy overall. The other one that I had that was carrying over was Fate Marked by David Estes, which did not go as well. This one I thought was okay, but I struggled with at a fair few points. It felt like some of it was just it's kind of the more using a lot of the basic kind of ideas and fantasy tropes, and sometimes some of that more familiar stuff has just been less engaging to me. But my biggest issue was the dialogue in this one, and I haven't done a full review yet. I'm not entirely sure if I will, but there were just lots of spots where the characters felt kind of flat to me, and some of the dialogue was just very like just cheesy or over the top, and I found myself struggling to connect with anything here. There's some interesting world building that's happening, but it also just wasn't interesting enough or like unique enough to really pull me in. So this one did not work particularly well for me, unfortunately. But that's kind of where I was there. Keeping it up then with something else that did not work particularly well for me, and was about a third of the month. I planned originally to do the 12 days of the Wandering Inn. You may have seen that video. It was quite long, so if you didn't watch it, that's fine too. I ended up finishing, I think, in like 10. But the Wandering Inn also just did not work particularly well for me. Now, I went in thinking there was a really good chance that it wouldn't work for me. But I was trying to go in with, no real expectations and just giving it a shot. But this, I talked about in the video, in some ways, I can kind of see the charm. This is, for the most part, very like low stakes. It's, very easy. It doesn't require a lot of, thought or effort to go through, especially if you do the audio, which I did. I don't think I would have ever gotten through this without the audio. It's just like it's something you can just kind of turn on and have in the background and just be that and accomplish that. But there are just so many issues with this, from the writing to the repetition to just being 10 times longer than it needs to be at a minimum, and just the writing, and it just really started to wear on me too with so much of it the further that I got in. So not a huge surprise, but not going to be a series for me. Definitely not going to be something that I would continue with, but I have finally at least tried it. So there you go. I have tried The Wandering Inn, and that at least is kind of ticked off, because I do like to try things. I thought there was a good chance that I wasn't, but hey, gave it a shot. So that's there. And then finally, the last thing that didn't really work for me, although this was, I did put as a not for now. I ended up my library review. My library copy of this, that it was digital copy, came through, and so I decided to borrow Children of the Fallen Gods. This is the second book in the War for the Lost Hearts, this series by Carissa Broadbent. The first book was a surprised one that I enjoyed, Daughter of No Worlds, and so I figured I would give this a shot, but I was really slumpy at the time, and I just was not really getting into it. I didn't really have specific complaints. I kind of went through a little bit of time where I was slumping a bit after this and needed to really switch it up and just do totally different stuff. And so that's kind of with this one. I put it down as not for now, because I felt like I was not engaging enough and wanted to try it again a little bit later. from there. So, in order to do something totally different, the next thing I ended up doing was Dragon Apostle by Tobias Youngblood. This is book 2 in the Projectionist series, and the first one was just so wildly different from the normal kind of stuff that I read in a lot of ways, that I kind of was, so much of it was just like, what is even happening, but in like a good, fun way. This one, I enjoyed a little bit less than the first one. I think it's just trying to pull in quite a lot and get things ready for what's going to be happening in book 3. So it felt like it might have just been a little bit of, the middle book syndrome, where that can happen sometimes, where you're continuing, but you also need to set up more. So I still enjoyed this and had a good time with it. And it's just, this is absolutely wild, sort of like urban fantasy, but sort of like neo-noir. It's got some more almost seeming like sci-fi seeming elements as well as fantasy elements. It's got shape-shifting insect creatures. It's got giants and succubus and everything, and it's kind of like it's just this world where all of this stuff is sort of there and normal, and it is a wild ride, and so it's been very entertaining and was a good thing to just do something totally different, which for me, sometimes doing something totally different helps to kind of just get me back on track and going. So that ended up being a fun time. And then did continue with Fina and Kate. We've been reading more of Orcos again, and we did The Warrior's Apprentice, which is the third book in the order that we're reading them, and then also is the first one that's following Miles as a POV character. And I did not enjoy this one as much as Barry R. Barry R was just so good, but I really liked this, and this was definitely enough that I'm very, very sold on this series. This one leans in a bit more into military sci-fi, which I think is where the series is going to be going overall. But just the character voice, and I thought it was going to take longer for me to click with Miles because of how much I loved Cordelia as the POV. It really didn't. I really enjoyed this. I have to say too, and if I do a video talking about it, I think you should read the Cordelia books first, and do those Shards of Honor and Barrier. This does spoil some stuff from Barrier, but also having the background from Barrier, I think makes this book so much more impactful. And so it's just, I do think that order, but yeah, I'm very sold on Murko's again. I will absolutely be continuing. I'm sure I'm going to continue to have a great time. And then I did, out of the pile of possibilities, the next pick was Prophet of Edan by Philip Chase. And this one is another that I wanted it to go better than it did. I ended up pretty much, I think, the same as this one, as the first one, where it's about 3.5. And it's good, and I particularly like the writing style, and some of the voice and the way that that's done. But I just still, I'm not fully engaged with this series. It's got some interesting things going on, but I think part of this too is just, again, I've been kind of going away from some more of the traditional fantasy if it doesn't have like something else to kind of draw me in here. And this one I think has some interesting elements, and it's, again, I don't have any like big negatives here, although I do feel like there's just a bit more of like Abercrombie influence than it is my personal taste, although that can be hit or miss for me. I've read other things that had that influence that ended up working, but it's, again, I really don't have a whole lot of complaints or critiques. It's just one that I think is good, but it's just I wasn't as pulled in as I would have liked it to be. So I will still probably get to the third book at some point, but it took me a really long time to get back to this book 2, and it might take me a while to get to book 3. But well, we'll just have to see how that goes as well. Then continuing with doing sort of the random things. So I got to another point where I was just really kind of, I actually read this between this and some other things too, but I needed to do something different because I was still kind of just a little bit slumpy this much, which might have impacted that a little bit too. So I decided to pop onto something, again, completely different, and do the second Gap Cycle book, which is The Gap in Division, Forbidden Knowledge by Stephen R. Donaldson. And this continues the just, these books are very dark, and they deal with some subject material that's going to absolutely make it hard read for a lot of people, and definitely stuff that I could do without. But it's the pieces are starting to really be put out there. The first book was this very close story, but it kind of just, and at the end too, and like the author note, it talks about it, it kind of just teases that there's so much more going on in this world. And we start to really see this. We have our returning characters, but there is just so much more than we were exposed to in the first one, including aliens of a fascinating nature, and these, the big mining company and the reach of that company, and seeing pirates in space and all these other kinds of things. And it's just, this seems like this truly is going to be setting up something special, which it's Donaldson, so it makes sense. But I just feel like this is going to be one of those series I'm going to need to read the whole thing before I can really have final thoughts on it, because each individual book is compelling, sometimes in a twisted way, but is compelling. But it's just like, it's going to be one, I think, and I've heard from some other people that you have to read the whole thing to really appreciate it. So I will continue on through that, but then I probably won't make a video until I finish the whole thing, and we'll go from there. And then what I was saving to be my last book of the year, because I knew I was going to enjoy it, Daughter of the Empire by Janie Wirtz and Raymond Feist. And this one too, it took me a little bit to get into this because I was just kind of slumpy, and I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to enjoy this book. So that's where, again, I'm like, I need to hold on. And that's where I paused everything I was doing. I did the Donaldson book and kind of reset. This, though, I will say, and I do need to do a review for this as well, coming up here soon. But I didn't love it as much as I expected to. I really liked this, and this ended up like 4.5 out of 5. So it just didn't get the full 5 for me, and I expected it to based on what I heard. And I think, again, it's very good, and it takes a bit to really get in there. It seems like it's a little bit more straightforward and basic at points, which, again, this is coming from Rift War, which is very like traditional fantasy elements, but with crazy stuff added in. So I'm like, this is gonna go. And it's I was literally talking to somebody talking about how I'm like, yeah, I just feel like it hasn't done that something extra yet, and then it did, like, immediately. So I'm really excited to read the other books. I know people tend to prefer this one. I think, honestly, I might be the opposite, where I really get into it with the other books, books 2 and 3, where we dig in even more. So I'm really excited to get to them still. And this was a very strong book, again, to finish the year. So it still worked out really well. And then I'll mention it here because I did start it. I ended up finishing both of the books that I had ongoing on the 30th. And so I had a very little bit of time. So I barely started, but I finally got around to starting the core. I popped on and was doing some of this. This is book 5 in the Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett. And I was doing a buddy read that ended up just being me rereading. And then I ended up just putting this off because this is still... I loved the first 2 books. I feel like I liked them almost more than the first time I read them. And then the second 2 books definitely brought it down a little bit. So I just wasn't feeling as excited to get to the 5th book. So I'll have to see once I finish this. Because I remember what happens with the ending, obviously. And I remember it really sticking really well. So I'll have to see after getting with this one. But this, I think, is going to be a little bit down in my overall just sort of my thoughts on the series, just based on my experience so far. I was really enjoying it, and it dipped down a little bit. We'll see where this ends up, but that will be, I'll talk about in January, because the bulk of that's can actually be ready in January, so we will go from there. So really, that is it. So kind of, I had been really like up the last couple months and doing all kinds of stuff here. And so this was a slower month for sure. Some big things here, but some great things. And I'm excited to see more of what I will be reading in January. I'm going to be doing some more Pile of Possibility stuff. I'll have a video coming out on that soon, as well as just kind of just grabbing some stuff that sounds good, and we'll see where it goes. But that's it for this one. So let me know your thoughts on any of the stuff that I talked about that I read in December, as well as what some of your highlights or lowlights you had in the month of December as well. Let me know, are you the kind of person that ends up slumping in December, or do you usually finish strong? I feel like I can go either way, and so I'd be curious how everyone feels there. And so I'm hoping I don't end up, I think I'm doing fine, but I think I got over my slump, so I'll have a strong January, where January is usually my slow month. So we'll see, but let me know in the comments. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether any of these books, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.